you, Pam, for that introduction. The purpose of my short time with you is to explore our conference theme, Theory, Uniting and Guiding Practice into the 21st Century. And so I want then to say a few words about theory, uniting and guiding practice into the 21st century. Things have been rough for all of us this past year, and as we all dealt with the pandemic, and so I wanted to show you something beautiful to look at. When the 21st century appeared, we were expecting it all kinds of wonderful things. And yet we were not even 2 decades into it when all of a sudden we realized there was a new virus on the horizon, and not just any virus, but COVID-19 that became a pandemic. Now, we know a little bit about pandemics. In 1938, 650 deaths occurred in the United States. And yet already, as we are in June of 2022, from 2020, over 1 million deaths have already occurred. And what is really important to nursing is that people say that for each death, there's at least 9 persons very much affected by that death. So there were just recently 5,000 new cases in California. So nurses are beginning to have to realize that everybody they meet is probably affected. The effects on healthcare are extreme. Challenges in the diagnosis and quarantine, treatment of suspected and confirmed cases, high burden of the functioning of the existing medical system, all of healthcare. Patients with other diseases and health problems are being neglected. There's an overload on doctors and healthcare professionals of all kinds, but particularly nurses, who are at very high risk also of catching the disease. And there's an overloading of all medical shops, a requirement for high protection. Economically, we've seen a slowing of manufacturing of essential goods, a disruption of the supply chain of products, and losses in national and international business, poor cash flow, and a significant slowing down of all kinds of revenue growth. Socially, the service sector is not being able to provide their proper service. Cancellation or postponements of large-scale sports and tournaments of all kinds, avoiding national and international traveling, cancellation of services, disruption of celebration of cultural, religious, and festive events, undue stress among the population, social distancing from our peers and family members, closure of hotels, restaurants, and religious places, closure of places for entertainment, such as movie, play theaters, sports clubs, gymnasium, swimming pools, and so on. And even the postponement of examinations, like getting into college, etc. So I think what we have to consider is that each nurse will assume that every person you meet has been affected. But nurses do have the knowledge and skills to help people deal with the effects of the pandemic. Nursing knowledge focuses on the goal of nursing, and then nursing theories and research are ways to reach the goal. So the RAA adaptation model then can unify and guide practice in this time of probably our greatest challenge in healthcare in centuries. Theory then, I talk about acting as a global positioning system. Used to be a compass, but now it's a global positioning system, which focuses our efforts in nursing. Theory also guides the development of knowledge for practice and helps them for us to respond to health needs in society. So the goal of nursing, a few years ago, Willis and colleagues, including myself, looked at all the nursing literature and decided that what it led to was the goal of nursing being facilitating humanization, meaning, choice, quality of life, and healing in living and dying. Now, each theory has philosophical and scientific assumptions, that is, concepts, propositions, ways to develop middle range theory, and middle range theories that are the basis for practice theories. So this is the knowledge tree that I have developed. So the goals of nursing being humanization, meaning, choice, quality of life, and healing in living and dying. Then you can have as many theories as you want as ways to reach that. So there are the grand theories, 1, 2, 3, as many, and the middle range theories that are we develop from the grand theories and then the practice theories from the middle range theories. So putting this tree for the structure of knowledge with the RAA-I model, we can say, again, the goal is humanization. But the RAA-I model does this specifically by using its major concepts, and then the middle range theories that we've already developed include those of adapting to life events, adapting to loss, adapting to chronic illness, family adaptation. And then from the middle range theories, we have developed practice theories, such as the ones that has been developed for palliative care. So as I was looking at humanization, I felt the need to make it more specific and talk about veritivity then as one of the philosophical assumptions. This then gives me the common purposefulness of people and the earth. So we are all here as, in my perspective, creatures of God, and our purpose is to go back to God. And but you can use any purpose from any perspective of life that you hold. There is, of course, a unity of all persons and the environment. The patterns below, you see Queen Anne's lace has a pattern that looks like a snowflake. So there's a certain unity. The diversity also among people and cultures, as in nature, the mountains or the desert don't. And yet each individual has a self-identity, a significance of what brings that person, what that person can bring to society. The scientific assumptions we've used are the common ones, but we'll look at those briefly. Systems of matter and energy progress to higher levels of self-organization. Consciousness and meaning are constitutive of person and environment integration. And it's this integration of person and environment meaning that result in adaptation. It was necessary to develop the cultural assumptions when we noted that some people were trying to apply it too much word for word and very strictly. And yet there were times when there may need to be changes. In other words, there may be experiences within a certain culture that will influence how each element of the model is expressed. Practice, education, research. Or within a culture, there may be a concept that is central to the culture and will influence some or all of the elements of the RAA-I model to a greater or lesser extent. The reason I thought of this is I remember being in Japan and thinking in Japan, it is much more common to think of the group before the individual. So if I were doing an assessment, I might look at interdependence before I look at self-concept. So the concept of the RAA-I model then are the adaptive systems, to think of people and groups and environment as adaptive systems. And then we developed the 4 adaptive modes with the processes for adaptation within each of those. And then the internal coping processes that we've been able to look at more specifically and develop a coping scale. So the theorist's work in a changing world has to do with unifying and guiding our practice. And unifying, just by way of the dictionary, means to bring something to a central point or under a single control, to come together to form a single unit. And we do find that the RAA-I model has a great way of pulling together the entire human systems in their environments. As we look at the 4 modes on the individual and group level, and look at the stimuli, both internal and external, and the behavior, both internal and external. And that it can be a guide. What do we mean by guide? Well, to guide as to direct in a way or a course, to direct, supervise, or influence, usually in a particular end, or to superintend the training or instruction of. So the RAA-I model can act as a guide. These are demanding times, and nurses using the RAA-I adaptation model are in a position then to unify and guide by similar and relevant concepts. And they use the middle range theories, which are highly relevant: adapting to life events, adapting to loss, adapting to chronic illness, and family adaptation. Our focus then is on adaptation as the process and outcome whereby thinking and feeling persons, as individuals and in groups, use conscious awareness and choice to create human and environmental integration. Nursing focuses on the goal to promote adaptation for individuals and groups, and it uses the nursing process. So we then are back to our notion of bringing all of life together and beauty. And as we go through the RAA-I Adaptation Conference of the next day, we will hear papers that continue to develop these ideas. Thank you all and enjoy the conference. God bless.